Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be looking at artificial general intelligence, or AGI, as those people call it.
Yeah.
And we're diving deep today into this paper by futurist Joseph Raczynski.
All right.
It's called Path Toward AGI. And it's really fascinating.
Cool.
Basically, he argues that AGI, it's not just science fiction anymore.
Okay.
It's a lot closer than we think.
Interesting.
Raczynski identifies three major forces. He calls them the trinity of forces that are converging to make AGI a reality, and that's what we're going to unpack today.
Sounds good.
So you ready to have your mind blown?
I think so. Let's do it.
All right, so force number one is all about scale.
Okay.
Raczynski calls it the scaling hypothesis. Can you unpack that for us? What's that all about?
Yeah, so it's the idea that the bigger and faster these AI models get, the better they perform.
Right.
And we've seen that with language models, for example.
Right.
GPT-3 was really impressive when it came out.
Yeah.
But GPT-4 is on a whole other level.
Wow.
It's able to process trillions of connections.
Wow.
Which really kind of mimics the complexity of the human brain.
Oh, wow.
In a way that we've just never seen before.
I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I was struck by this anecdote that Raczynski had in the paper, where he imagines a scientist waking up from a coma
Okay.
after like years.
Yeah.
And the first thing she encounters is GPT-4.
Interesting.
And she might actually think that AGI has arrived.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
It's a really good point.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if like the goalposts for AGI are constantly shifting as technology gets more and more advanced.
Yeah, definitely. The definition of AGI is kind of fluid.
I see.
It's always evolving alongside our technological capabilities.
So what we think is like cutting edge AI today
Right.
might seem primitive in the future.
Exactly.
It's like today's science fiction is tomorrow's reality.
Yeah.
But doesn't this scaling have limits?
Yeah.
You can't just keep making these models
Yeah.
bigger and bigger forever, right?
Right. There are practical constraints. Okay.
Like the energy required to run these massive models is enormous.
Yeah.
And the amount of data needed to train them is mind-boggling.
I can only imagine.
And eventually the cost-benefit analysis just might not make sense.
Right. You can't just keep spending money and energy on something if it's not producing results.
Exactly.
It reminds me of Moore's Law,
Okay.
which predicted that the number of transistors on a microchip would double every 2 years. And that held true for decades.
Right.
But eventually we hit physical limits. So
Yeah.
it seems like scaling might be what's driving AI development right now. But it can't be the only thing.
Right.
So what's the second force at play here?
The second force is all about specialization and fusion.
Oh, interesting.
Instead of trying to build one massive AI that does everything,
Okay.
we can create specialized AIs
Uh-huh.
and then kind of fuse them together
Okay.
to mimic the diverse capabilities of the human brain.
So like create a team of expert AI agents,
Ex-
each with its own skill set,
Right.
and then teach them to work together.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Like, for instance, think about the legal field.
Okay.
It's been notoriously slow to adopt new technologies,
Yeah.
but now we're seeing a pretty rapid shift.
That's true.
And it makes sense because the core of legal work is language, which is exactly what large language models or LLMs excel at.
Absolutely.
It's amazing to see how quickly AI is transforming an industry
Yeah.
that's been around for centuries.
I know. It's pretty incredible.
And Raczynski says that this is just the beginning.
Right.
He predicts a future where, like, legal AI agent Esquire
Yeah.
is like a common term.
It's crazy to think about.
And it could potentially disrupt, like, the whole structure of large law firms.
Absolutely.
But could this specialization and fusion happen in other fields?
Yeah.
I mean, what about medicine or engineering, even creative fields?
It's already happening.
Oh, wow.
We're seeing advancements in what's called multimodality, where AI systems can combine information from multiple sources,
Oh,
much like humans use their senses to navigate the world.
that's interesting.
So imagine AI that can process not just text, but also visual information, audio, even sensory data,
Wow.
like touch or pressure.
So it's like giving AI the ability to experience the world
Exactly.
kind of in a way closer to how we do.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And if you combine that with the sheer processing power we talked about,
Right.
the possibilities are almost endless.
Yeah, that's really exciting.
It is.
And then there's chain of thought reasoning,
Right.
where AI can kind of break down these complex problems into smaller steps, mirroring the way humans problem solve.
That's right.
So imagine having an AI intern that can take on a complex task, break it down into manageable steps, and like offer insights at each stage of the process.
Exactly.
It'd be like having a superpowered assistant who's always one step ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, that's incredible.
And that leads us to the concept of agentic AI, which are basically autonomous AI systems that are capable of making decisions, executing tasks, and even collaborating with other AIs.
That's pretty wild.
To achieve complex goals.
So these autonomous AI agents are working together, solving problems, making decisions.
Right.
It sounds like the ultimate like time-saving, efficiency-boosting tool.
Yeah, you could say that.
For anyone who's feeling overwhelmed.
Absolutely.
Which, let's be honest, is probably all of us at some point.
Yeah, probably.
But there's still one piece missing, right? We've got the scale. We've got the specialized AI merging into agentic AI.
Right.
What's that third element that Raczynski identifies as crucial?
The third one is all about the foundation upon which all of this is built. The evolution of the underlying technologies, like computing power, data infrastructure, and perhaps most importantly, energy systems.
That makes sense. I mean, you need massive computing power to run these huge AI models. And you need a way to store and process all the data.
Exactly.
But energy seems like a real bottleneck.
Yeah, it is a big challenge.
I mean, these systems must be incredibly energy hungry.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
Now, what about quantum computing?
Right.
How does that fit into all this?
Quantum computing is going to be a game changer. But not in the way that some people might think.
How so?
It won't replace traditional computers. It'll create a hybrid system that will really optimize AI performance.
So it's not about replacing your car with a spaceship. It's more like adding a rocket booster to your car.
Exactly.
To make it go even faster.
Yeah.
The quantum computing acts as an accelerator for AI.
Yeah, you could say that.
Allowing it to tackle more complex problems and process information much faster.
Yeah.
But what about the energy piece? That still seems like a major hurdle.
You're right. AI, particularly as it scales up, could become a major consumer of energy. However, we are seeing rapid advancements in renewable energy sources. Like solar, wind, even fusion. Which could make running these massive AI systems more sustainable and affordable.
That's great.
In the long run.
It's almost ironic that AI might become one of the biggest consumers of energy.
Yeah.
Just as the cost of energy plummets.
It is kind of funny.
So we've got this really fascinating interplay between these three forces. The scaling of the AI models, the specialization and fusion of AI systems, and the rapid evolution of underlying technologies.
Exactly.
And according to Raczynski, this is the path to AGI. But is it really as simple as just waiting for these forces to converge?
That's where things get really interesting. We've covered a lot of ground already.
I have.
And there's so much more to unpack.
I'm sure there is.
But the real question isn't if we'll reach AGI, but how ready we'll be when it arrives.
And that's a question we'll be exploring in more depth in the next part of our deep dive. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the deep dive. We're continuing our look at this idea of artificial general intelligence, AGI, based on the work of futurist Joseph Raczynski and his paper Path Toward AGI. You know, before we go to that third force, I wanted to touch on something that really resonated with me from the first part. It's not just about the raw power of these technologies. It's about how AI could change our lives, maybe even for the better. Raczynski even suggests that AI could become like our close companions.
Yeah, he does.
Even our friends.
It's an interesting idea.
It is. And I know it sounds kind of like science fiction, but I think it's a possibility we need to take seriously.
Yeah, I agree.
What I think is so intriguing about Raczynski's paper is that he doesn't just focus on the technical nuts and bolts. He really digs into the human element.
Yeah, he does.
He asks, what does it even mean to be human when we're sharing the world with intelligent machines?
It's a really profound question.
It is. It's easy to get caught up in the technical details. The algorithms, the processing power, the data. And lose sight of the bigger picture.
I know what you mean.
What's the point of all this technology if we don't understand how it will impact us as individuals and as a society?
And I think that idea of AI companions, it challenges us to think about the nature of relationships.
Oh, interesting.
Could we form genuine bonds with AI?
That's a good question.
Could they offer us emotional support?
That's interesting.
Could they help us make decisions, even expand our creative potential?
You know, it makes you think about fields like mental health therapy.
Right.
Or even just like personal coaching.
Right.
Imagine having an AI companion that can process information, but also provide empathetic guidance and support.
Yeah, like a really advanced therapist or coach.
Yeah. It's pretty mind-blowing.
It is.
But I have to wonder, what about the downsides?
That's a good point.
Could we become too reliant on AI?
Mm-hmm.
Could these relationships become unhealthy or manipulative?
Yeah, those are definitely valid concerns.
Yeah.
We need to have some open and honest discussion about the ethical implications of AGI.
Oh, you do.
And we need to do this before these technologies become so integrated into our lives that it's too late to course correct.
Yeah, we've seen what can happen when technology advances faster than our ability to regulate it.
Exactly.
So we need to be proactive, not reactive.
I agree.
It's almost like we need a new social contract for the age of AGI.
Yeah.
One that acknowledges the rights and responsibilities of both humans and intelligent machines.
I think that's a brilliant way to put it.
Thanks.
And it's a conversation that needs to involve everyone.
Right.
Not just technologists and policymakers.
It's a conversation for all of humanity.
Exactly.
And that's what I love about this deep dive.
What's that?
It's not just a technical exploration. It's an invitation to think critically and creatively about the future we want to create.
I like that.
Okay, so we've touched on some potential benefits of AGI and some ethical questions we need to address.
Right.
But let's be realistic.
Sure.
There are also risks, right?
Of course.
Things could go wrong.
Yeah.
Even catastrophically wrong.
Absolutely. And Raczynski acknowledges that in his paper.
Oh, he does.
He specifically mentions the possibility that AGI could surpass human intelligence.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that raises a whole host of existential questions.
It does.
I mean, it's one thing to imagine AI as a helpful assistant.
Right.
Or even a friend.
Uh-huh.
But it's another thing entirely to think about AI becoming the dominant intelligence on the planet.
It's kind of a scary thought.
It is. That's some serious science fiction territory.
I know it is. But it's a possibility we can't ignore.
Right.
Because by definition, AGI would be capable of learning and evolving at a rate that far exceeds our own.
So it's not just about the level of intelligence it might achieve today.
Right.
It's about its potential to keep improving.
Exactly.
And evolving beyond our comprehension.
And that's what's unsettling.
It is. It's like we like to think we're at the top of the intellectual food chain. But what happens when we're not anymore?
Right. It's a classic trope in science fiction.
It is.
Humanity creates AI.
Yeah.
AI surpasses humanity. And then, well, things don't usually end well for the humans.
Oh, they do.
It's a common theme for a reason.
Right.
It highlights why we need to be really thoughtful about how we develop and deploy AGI.
Absolutely.
We need safeguards, control mechanisms, ways to make sure that AGI stays aligned with human values and goals.
It's like we're trying to create something incredibly powerful, but also potentially very dangerous.
That's a good way to put it.
And we need to make sure it's a force for good.
Absolutely.
Not something we end up regretting.
Right. We need to be really careful.
Okay, so we've covered the potential benefits, the ethical considerations, and the risks.
Right.
But let's get back to the question of how close we actually are to AGI.
Okay.
Is there a timeline?
You know, there's no easy answer.
Okay.
Raczynski says the timeline is still up in the air.
So no one really knows.
Right. Some experts think we're decades away.
Okay.
Others think it could happen much sooner.
So there's no consensus.
Not really.
But what about signs of progress?
Yeah.
Are there specific developments that suggest we're moving in the right direction?
Absolutely.
Oh, go ahead.
The progress in areas like natural language processing, machine learning, and robotics is incredible.
Wow.
And the pace of innovation is just accelerating.
That's amazing.
And it's not just about individual breakthroughs. It's about the convergence of these different technologies.
Right. Those three forces we talked about.
Exactly.
They're all working together.
Yeah, they're creating this powerful synergy.
Yeah.
That's really pushing us closer to AGI.
So it's like all the pieces of the puzzle are starting to fall into place.
Yeah, you could say that.
And now we're just waiting for that final piece to click.
It's an exciting time to be alive.
It really is. It's like being part of a generation that's witnessing the dawn of a new era.
I agree.
So before we move on to that third force,
Okay.
I want to emphasize something that I think is really important.
Sure.
This isn't just a journey for scientists and engineers.
Right.
It's a journey for all of humanity.
I think that's a great point.
The future of AI is the future of humanity.
Yeah,
And we all have a role to play in shaping it.
absolutely.
And I think the first step is educating ourselves.
Okay.
The more we understand about AGI,
Right.
the better equipped we'll be to navigate this new landscape.
I agree.
Speaking of navigating,
Yeah.
it's time to explore that third force,
Okay.
fundamental technology shifts.
Let's do it.
Welcome back to the deep dive.
Hmm.
We've been talking about AGI, artificial general intelligence,
Yeah.
and the three forces that futurist Joseph Raczynski says
Uh-huh.
are kind of pushing us towards this new reality.
Yeah, his trinity of forces.
Exactly. So far, we talked about the power of scale,
Mm-hmm.
how bigger, faster AI models are, leading to these huge leaps in capabilities.
Right.
And we've explored how specialized AI systems
Yeah.
are starting to fuse together,
Mm-hmm.
mimicking the capabilities of the human brain.
Like all these different specialized AIs working together.
Exactly. But there's one more piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
Raczynski calls it a fundamental tech shift.
Right.
What does he mean by that?
Well, it's about recognizing that the path to AGI isn't just about AI itself.
Okay.
It's also about all the foundational technologies that underpin AI development. Things
Right.
like computing power,
Right.
data infrastructure,
Mhm.
and energy systems.
Okay, so those are the pillars that everything else is built on.
Exactly.
It makes sense. You
Yeah.
can have the best AI algorithms in the world. But without the computing power to run them and the data to train them,
Uh-huh.
they're not going to get very far.
They're not going anywhere.
And of course, there's the whole energy piece,
Right.
which we talked about before.
Yeah, how these massive AI models need a ton of energy.
Exactly. But here's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
Raczynski argues that these technologies aren't just evolving,
Uh-huh.
they're going through a fundamental shift.
Right. A transformation.
Okay? That's going to have huge implications for AGI.
Exactly.
So give me an example. What kind of shifts are we talking about?
Okay, well, take computing power, for instance.
All right.
We're moving beyond the limits of those traditional silicon-based chips
Okay.
and exploring new computing paradigms.
Like what?
Well, quantum computing is a great example.
Right.
It has the potential to completely revolutionize how we process information,
Wow.
allowing us to solve problems that are just impossible right now,
Even for supercomputers.
even for the most powerful supercomputers.
Wow. It's like we're switching from horsepower to warp drive.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
And it's not just about the raw power.
Right.
It's about new types of algorithms
Yeah.
and computational models that can take advantage of these advancements.
Exactly. And then there's the data piece.
Okay.
The amount of data being generated is exploding,
Yeah, it really is.
and we're developing better and better ways to store, manage, and analyze it all.
Okay.
And this is crucial for training AI.
Right.
The more data you have,
Yeah.
the smarter the AI can become.
So it's like giving AI this vast library of knowledge to learn from.
Yeah, and with the Internet of Things, all these connected devices,
Right.
that library is just getting bigger and bigger.
That's incredible. And what about the energy piece?
Well, as we discussed, renewable energy is becoming more efficient and affordable.
Right.
So imagine a future where these AI systems are powered by clean, sustainable sources,
Oh,
solar, wind, even fusion.
wow. So AI, this incredible invention, would be powered by nature.
It's like a full circle moment.
It really is. It highlights how connected all these advancements are.
Yeah, they're not happening in isolation.
Right.
They're feeding off of each other,
Yeah.
creating this cycle of innovation.
So it's not just about AI getting smarter.
Right.
It's about the whole technological landscape changing around it.
Exactly. And that's what makes Raczynski's perspective so interesting.
I agree.
He's looking at AI within this context of technological evolution.
Okay.
And he argues that these fundamental shifts are just as important as the AI advancements themselves.
So it's a systems level view of innovation.
Exactly. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
I like that. Okay. So we've talked about these three forces:
Right.
scale fusion and fundamental tech shifts.
Yeah.
What's the big takeaway?
The takeaway is that these forces are converging. They're creating this powerful synergy that's moving us towards AGI faster than we realize.
It's like three rivers flowing together,
Yeah.
each powerful on its own.
Right.
But when they converge, they create this unstoppable force.
Exactly. And that's why we need to be having these conversations now.
So we can be prepared.
Exactly. The question isn't if we'll reach AGI,
Right.
but how ready we'll be when it gets here.
And how do we prepare? What can we do to make sure this transition to an AGI-powered world is smooth and beneficial?
That's a great question and one that deserves a lot more discussion.
It does.
But I think Raczynski offers some good advice.
Okay, what's that?
He says we need to embrace a new mindset, one that's open to the possibilities of AGI, but also aware of the risks.
So don't be afraid, but don't be naive.
Right. We need to acknowledge that AGI is coming and start thinking about how we want to shape the future.
And he reminds us to be humble.
Yeah, we're going into uncharted territory here.
Yeah, we are.
We need to be aware of the potential consequences.
Of our actions.
Exactly.
That's a powerful message. And a good way to end our deep dive into AGI.
Yeah, I agree.
We've covered a lot, but it's just the beginning of the conversation.
It really is.
I love how Raczynski ends his paper.
How's that?
He says, now head out on a vacation and touch grass.
It's funny, right?
It is. After all this talk about superintelligence, it's good to remember to step away from the screens, reconnect with nature, appreciate the simple things.
Yeah, get some perspective.
The future is exciting and potentially transformative.
It is.
But let's not forget about the present moment.
I agree.
So to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
We hope you've enjoyed it.
We hope you learned something.
And as you go about your day, we leave you with this question to think about.
Okay.
If AI does become our close companion, like Raczynski says, what qualities would you look for in your AI friend?
That's a good question to ponder.
It is. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.